eatradio.com.
And we are back. Welcome to the weekly show. Thanks for joining us. So the last time I saw this guy, I had hair.
No, actually you didn't.
No?
Nope.
That's true.
I have a picture.
Oh.
I have a picture
Of me without hair?
of you with Rob about maybe 10 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Kyle's got it.
Yeah.
It's you and Rob
Uh-oh.
together. Yeah.
So Rob, long time no talk and see. What's
There it
going on?
is.
Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah. That must have been at NAMM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
I
the
remember
Naps.
that now. See, I
remember
have a
that?
good memory
Yeah, I
sometimes.
think it was you were playing at a hotel or something.
Yeah, the Hilton, right?
Right. You were playing at the Hilton, right? Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That was a while ago, so.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to? What's going on?
Well, you know, it's been exciting. You know, I've most recently I finished a new CD, which is called 821 Monroe Drive, which is a local address out here in the islands in Huntington, Centerport, which is where I kind of grew up. So I kind of went back to my roots. I was there as a kid, you know, just learning about guitar. So I kind of tried to capture that inspiration, and that's why the album's named that. And you know, before that, you know, I really just been trying to do like this music thing, you know, independent music, you know, which is a hard thing to do, especially the way the industry is now. But you know, I keep it up, and you know, I just, you know, hopefully, you know, people as myself, I do, you know, support live music in venues and independent artists. I think it's important.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's something that you and I have a lot in common because, you know, from Village Music Shop, we've been keeping the dream alive for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Village Music Shop's been around for almost 50 years. And you were in one of our first contests back in 1990, right?
Yeah.
So the Village Music Shop's New York's Best Guitarist contest that we held at Spit in Levittown. There's a blast from the past name for you. And you were in that one contest that was there, and you won.
Yeah.
And you did great from that. You got a couple of special deals out of it. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, that was a great event. I mean, you know, just, you know, at that time, the Spit was like one of the big clubs to play on the island. That's where you guys were having the event.
Right.
And, you know, one specific thing I remember about that night is like the contest happened, and you know, I was there hanging out with friends. I got up the stage, and you know, there was other players that went on after me, and I just remember sitting there and probably had a little too much to drink at the time, and they announced my name, and you know, with my friend, they were like, "Rob, you won it." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Yeah, they announced it." So it took me a while to even register, you know. Then I remember going up on the stage and you know, realizing it sunk in that I won the contest, which was just, to me, it was a big deal. I think it was great. You know, you had such a great organization, you know, to the event. You had guitar for the practicing musician there, so I got in the magazine. You had like judges. I think it was Mitch Colby. You had Diodario Strings, which is Don Dawson, which that ended up being like my first, you know, musical endorsement. You know, musical instrument endorsement was with Diodario Strings, and I'm still with them to this day. Endorsed since then.
That's great that we could help. And, you know, that was one of the things that, and we spoke about this, that, you know, we got contacted by Robert Rosenblatt, and people that don't know, he's like the godfather of marketing and media. And Robert Rosenblatt Agency is the one that does the promotions for the Grammys. So he's a promo king. And he contacted us, and he said, "I want you to start this for New York." It was the first time International Guitar Month was being done. And we took it, and that promotion that we did, you know, in front of a wall of 14 Marshall 100-watt stacks, on stage in front of 5,000 people, on a Wednesday, and you know, we packed the place out. People stayed till 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, nobody left. I mean, the place was full, and they used that as a benchmark for contests around the country. The year after, they said, "This is what you need to do," and that's why everybody wanted to be involved in it, because it was. You know, I had Andy Rossi, who now Andy Rossi was the CEO of. He was in charge of Fender. He was running Fender but at the time he was with Marshall, And he said to me, he said, "I just want you to know, in my eyes, you're God." He said, you know, 'cause he was all, you know, hooked up in the moment, and just even Keith Hart from Spit at the time, who was the promotions director there, he's like, "Whatever you want to do next year, you got it. If you want to do it on a Saturday, I'll give you anything you want." This was great. They were all excited. They were all caught up in the moment, and that was great. And that was the excitement that I tried to bring forth.
Yeah.
You know, we had the music paper, we had Good Times magazine
Yeah.
involved, and you know, just all those amps on stage, you know, and we set a Guinness Book World Record for that many Marshalls on the stage. That was the first time we used the JCM 900 series in
Yeah, I
a live
remember.
application
That's true.
ever. And you know, when you know, you know, well, you know me now, and I do everything at 120%. I don't do anything, you know, halfway. So, but no, it was great that you were able to, you know, use that as a start-off point and a jumping-off point to get that far. And over the years, you've been playing with a lot of different companies and endorsees and stuff.
Yeah. I've well, you know, once you start the ball rolling and you start to get things happening, you know, that to me was like you know, one of the events. Like if I look back on my career, that was to me, that's like the first major thing I think that happened for me, which, you know, it says a lot about you guys, you know what I mean? So thanks a lot for putting that on. And you know, after that, you know, I started. That was 1990, and I was working with Ibanez Guitars at the time. Wasn't like a full endorsed member yet. And around the end of that year, I ended up. So it started with D'Addario, then I got endorsed with Ibanez Guitars, and I'm endorsed with Ibanez Guitars now. So everyone that I started with, I'm still with now. So it's over 20 years with Ibanez Guitars, D'Addario Strings. And, you know, I started to, at that time I was working I was out of college, Five Towns College. I finished up Five Towns College, and I started to work at a record label. And, you know, I sort of tried to make some music connections. You know, I wanted to keep the job related. If I was going to get a day gig, I wanted to revolve to music.
Absolutely.
So I got a job working at Relativity Records. And that's where I started to meet, you know, you start to meet people. I met my attorney there, which is still my attorney to this day. It's Peter Schukat, Hafer, and Weber. And, you know, that's how, and it was a guitar label, and Steve Vai had his records going through there. And, you know, I started to, I had one record that was done in '95, which is the independent record that was distributed through there. And then, you know, I got to associate with Steve through the label at one point, and I sent him the demos for my second CD, which is called Mantra, and he ended up wanting to put it out. So that started a relationship with his label, which is called Favored Nations, and I put 3 records out through his label, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
And then and just until recently now, you know, the way the industry is, you know, everyone's doing their own CDs now because it's just better for the artist, you know, when you do it yourself now, because most of the time it's digital, you know, downloads.
Yeah, well, as we spoke about, that's one of the
Yeah.
things that we found. And, you know, we spoke to a couple of record execs back in the day, and, you know, we've been doing this for 10 years. And I'll never forget, we had R.J. Bucaria on from Sony, and we interviewed him on radio back when we were doing radio, and he said, I said, so give us some pointers, you know, from an artist, and I want to get, you know, get out there and do my thing, and what do I need to do to get a record deal? And he gave us his pointers and stuff. He was on a year to the day, right, remember? Mm-hmm. A year to the day, he came back on, and I said, so how's the music business treating you? He goes, the music business is dead. What music business?
Yeah.
Because, you know, and I knew that because we had made the discussion, and I said with the online media, and I had the vision at the time that we were going to be going into TV, and we were, and that, you know, it was going to be a big thing. Yeah. And it was going to take everything that we know, everything that was in status quo for so many years, and just shake it up and turn it around.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. It started with the music, and now it's working with the radio stations and TV studios, and now even cable companies with what we're doing. You know, you don't need to have, you know, hey, I got to be home at 7 o'clock to watch, you know, this show. You don't need to do that. It's video on demand now.
Yeah.
You can watch it on your mobile device. You can get it through the internet. You don't need a cable coming into your house there's so many different ways to get the content.
Yeah.
So he's actually now an advisor for us, JB Carrier.
Oh,
so
that's
he's
great.
he's on board with us. He's our strategic advisor. So yeah, we we try to keep people that work with us close to the close to home, and we appreciate you coming back.
Oh no, this is great. I mean, I really, it says a lot that the Village Music Shop is. I personally am a fan of, call it mom and pop stores. You know what I mean? This store is amazing that you're still here under the circumstances with these big stores and all that stuff. I wouldn't even walk in those stores. I'd like to go to stores like you. You know, especially in New York. Like sometimes you go. Like I travel a lot, and if you go to like if you go to Dallas and North Carolina, you'll see more of a mom and pop type of stores there. But you don't see it around anymore. Everyone's closing.
Well, it is hard to do, and we've been in business for almost 50 years, up against some of the biggest names in the world. So thankfully to guys like you that go into stores like small stores like us, keep us alive, and that's what we do. And we have professional musicians that come in and they trust what we do.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a testimonial to what we've been doing. So what do you have in the future? What's the next step? Where are you headed?
Well, what we're doing now is, the new record is called 821 Monroe Drive, and so we've been kind of like, just trying to get our road legs going. We just finished up the Dallas Guitar Festival, so we did show over there. We have some shows coming up, next Saturdays at Mexicali Live with another great guitar player. His name is Chris Duarte, which is a really cool blues guitar player. Then we're heading up to the Hard Rock in Niagara Falls in June, the end of June, June 25th. And also in Binghamton, I think, on June 24th. And then in July, I think July 4th weekend, we're actually going to be in the West Coast, I think Portland. So we're trying to get shows booked, but it's not like, you got to realize when you're dealing with independent music, independent artists, it's not like we're going to go out for a year or 6 months. We go out for a week, 2 weeks, and then we stop, and then we go out and we get another bunch of shows. So that's the way it's got to be done,
Right. Yeah. But I mean, with social media today, you probably find it a lot easier to put some of these gigs together.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. The only thing, and it's not to, it's horrible to say that, we keep talking about how the industry is bad. I mean, it's not bad. It's just that there's a lot of venues that are actually closing. You know what I mean? So it's weird. For an artist like me, just say middle. If I'm in the middle, I'm here, and then you got like the big bands that are on the radio up here, and then you got the starting bands over here. There's tons of clubs for these guys to play, but when you come down to the middle level,
it's hard.
They're all closing up, so it's very hard, to get, you got good thing. There's like a BB King's in a lot of the areas.
Right.
So I played BB King's in New York. We played at the BB King's. We're playing the Hard Rock before we played at the Hard Rocks. So if it wasn't for those things and not like the independent venues are closing up. Look what happened to Philly. We had a gig book in Philly last year at. I'm trying to think of the name. A famous place that's been there for 25 years. Nirvana played there. 2 weeks before the thing, I get a call from the thing. They closed.
They closed it, done.
Yeah.
They packed it in. Bars that's another business.
Yeah.
That's another tough business.
But I think it's all. All this is connected in some way.
There's a changing of the guard, and I think right now people have to look at things in a different way because things are changing. They're starting to morph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I wouldn't say that the music business is bad. It's just very, very different, and we have to figure out how it's changed. And
we
how
have
it's
to
changing.
figure out how we need to work in this new world.
Yeah.
Because it is different. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, coming from I worked at some record labels for at some point, and the thing is, what I think really it is, and I think people are seeing that is the age of the record label is over. Everyone knows that, but I think really what the record label is turning into now, instead of being a label, it's becoming more of a marketing company, so that they can help artists like myself and artists that are upcoming, because you don't need them to put out. You don't need the middle ground to put out the records anymore, because it's stupid for an artist to go to a label, get a record deal, and then pay for the production of the record when you could produce the record yourself through independent means for much cheaper. So then what happens is artists have to buy the record from the label when they go on tour, and they're going to pay $6 when they could print it themselves and pay less than $2.
Right.
So it's really the marketing that where I think what will happen is it'll help everybody, because even if you're a big huge artist, you still need a marketing behind you. So that's my take. That's what I think is going to happen, and I think you kind of see it happening like that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And one of the things that's always been tough is that the equipment for the technology to record, for all the rest of that stuff, has been so out of people's reach. I mean, when we had the recording studio, it was millions of dollars in order to make this happen, and you had to constantly keep upgrading. It wasn't like it just let it go once in a while, we'll skip a year, we'll skip a month. It was always, you always had to get the new stuff out.
Yeah.
Whether it was a new amp, or new this, and new that. We had old boutique amps, we had a whole amp room. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was just so much equipment that we had, and that we had to get, and we had to keep up on it, and go, and go. But now it's, you open your laptop, you plug in a USB mic, you start playing.
I know.
And then there's so much that you can do now on your own.
I know. When I look back, so this is my 5th CD. So when I look back at my first CD, I kind of lucked out when it came to the first CD. I ended up hooking up with a producer, engineer, and the studio, which was the Power Station, which is a huge studio in Manhattan. Now it's called Avatar. So I got to do my first record on a spec deal in that beautiful, huge studio. And then the second record, the same producer did it. I went in and did it there. So I'm like used to these big rooms. I mean, it was so funny. I'm in the studio, my debut CD, and there's AC/DC's like next door, like playing. I was like amazed, like what the hell's going on, So you look at it back then, and then to my newest CD, where I did all the guitar tracks in my home studio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And is there a real big difference in the sound? There's not. You know what I mean? I almost think that because I've had the luxury of recording the guitar parts myself and not having to worry about a clock, that you get better guitar tones, because I sit there and think what's better for this song, what kind of tone do I need, and I have the time to mess around.
Well, ultimately, that is the idea. You don't want to have to worry about, it's costing me another $100.
Right.
You want to make sure that you really come out of it with what you want. I mean, I've been in so many recording sessions where people just rushed it. And you try to be nice. You say, you really want to come in here and you really want to listen to this track. And sometimes they just don't,
Yeah.
they don't get it. But yeah, it's sometimes it's all about the clock.
Yeah. I remember this funny story that you say there, because I was doing, it was my Color Light record, which is my 3rd record. We were in this different studio in the city, and the engineer was there, and I kind of blocked out the studio, and I don't know, I forget, we had like a really good rate, you know what I mean? But it was done, we negotiated a rate that was for the full recording, so mixing everything was all packaged in. So like we're sitting there, and he had the engineers behind the thing, and he's like, Rob, can't you do this melody again in the song? And he says, can't we just copy and paste it for the next part? And I was like, no. I was like, no, we cannot do that. I was like, no, but these are different nuance on the second part. He's looking at me like I'm nuts, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit out of hand, right? With copy and paste is a little bit too much. Yeah. I get you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's no shortage of that, that's for sure. So yeah, but with technology sometimes comes, even with the technology, you still need to know how to mix.
Oh yeah, no.
There's a creative art to that. Forget about it. You need, if you don't have it, it doesn't matter what kind of equipment you have.
Yeah.
You could have millions of dollars worth of equipment. I've heard some really good stuff come off of some, really, bad equipment.
Right.
So it all depends on how you approach it, what you do with it.
Yeah, I think everyone has a different ear, and you hear things differently. And I think really somebody that's producing and engineering, if they have the ear for it, it makes the world of difference. If, you know, you can have somebody can have the best equipment, but if they're not hearing it, you know, it's not going to come out good. It's just it's really that simple.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a, well, I mean, it sounds small now, but I had an 8-track, big old Scully 280 8-track, for anybody who knows what a Scully is, and 1-inch tape. And, you know, we recorded Shannon, let the music play on that. We did Aerosmith on that. We did, you know, we had, you know, a lot of the stuff from the 80s. We did tons of bands on that machine. That machine had a lot of history on it. And came out great.
Yeah.
Came out great. We had Aerosmith in the studio. They took the studio for a whole month.
Wow.
Just before they had their big comeback. That was, you know, that's what brought them into the comeback.
That's great.
Another Village Music Shop success story. Because I had Jimmy Crespo from Aerosmith used to teach for me.
Wow.
Yeah, he worked for me, and the road manager used to work for me as well. And yeah, back in the day.
That's great.
Well, that's great, Rob. Thanks for joining us. And this is the
Thank you so
CD.
much.
This is the one you're going to want to get. And this is now available on iTunes. Tell
It's
us
on
where we get this.
iTunes. It's on iTunes. It's on you know, most of the downloadable websites, and you could also get it through. I have a website. It's www.robbalducci.com, and there you can actually get the physical CD. And with it, I have like special packages that you can only get through the website. So you can get like it comes with you can get a backing track version which has like the leads and melodies out. If you're a guitar player and you want to play along, there's a special package that includes that,
Nice.
and it comes with a poster, a guitar pick, and a picture, and that kind of stuff.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Nice. Got to get my autographed Rob Balducci guitar pick. I feel like I'm all set to go now. Very cool. All right. So what about a website? You have a social media website? You want to put it out there?
Yeah, well, again, it's robbalducci.com, and then I'm on Facebook. You know, there's 2 pages, but the band page, so it's the Rob Balducci Band, and then Instagram, it's Rob Balducci. It's pretty simple. Google, it's Rob Balducci, Google Plus, and
Just Google Rob Balducci needs a pizza. He'll come down there.
that's it. Yeah.
That's good. Great. Well, it's great to see you again after all these years. We had a lot of fun. It was good.
Thank you so much.
And, you know, you'll have to come back for sure.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
We got to do something. Maybe we could do something where I could do players.
Oh, I got plans now. Wait, the camera hasn't turned off yet. Wait, I've already thought about five things we need to put together. So, you know, we're gonna have a little chit chat.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again soon. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Eat